facilitating the agriculture, forest and land use session here at Bitesize, which is a big sector. The reason I was really interested in it is we've got a great array of stakeholders from academia, from public, private sector. And our sector is a real challenge for Scotland, for the UK, globally, in terms of needing more food, having a finite resource, which is land, but needing to become lower carbon. And actually, if we look at our sector, certainly for Scotland and the UK, we're some way off where we need to be in terms of decarbonising, so lowering our emissions. So the discussions today have already been quite heated, really interesting in terms of diverse opinions about how we do that. How do we maintain food security, maintain the balance between natural ecosystems and farmed ecosystems, so managed ecosystems, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions in line with actually stabilising climate, reducing emissions in Scotland by 80% by 2050. So the key focus for us has been inefficiencies, actually. So things like food waste and loss. So if you think about every cow in the field, every turnip the farmers grow in Scotland, or every stalk of broccoli, all of that has energy inputs, has fertiliser inputs, which produce greenhouse gases. And that's fine as long as it's efficiently transferred along the supply chain and eaten by us. So we were talking a lot about the losses which occur, so the wastage which occurs, and so the emissions which are happening for no good reason and how they could be intercepted. Some great ideas have already come up in terms of the transition from the farmer to the buyer, and how there are losses there simply because of what we all expect in the shops. So beautiful vegetables, beautiful fruit, and the rejection of that. So the kind of aesthetic standards, and how that could be an area where the ugly veg kind of movement could help us avoid less food wastage and so cut emissions from the farmer point of view. And one of the key parts of that, in terms of the expertise we have in the room, and a big issue for Scotland, is nitrogen. So nitrogen is one of these key sources of fertiliser for all of our crops, and at the moment a lot of our emissions come from nitrous oxide, so it's this powerful greenhouse gas. And again, if we can use that more efficiently, if we can cut out food waste but also put on just the right amount of nitrogen on our crops just at the right time, that has massive potential to allow our sector, land use, agriculture, forestry in Scotland, to go on a much more aggressive low carbon pathway and do its bit in terms of reaching the climate change target for Scotland. Yeah, so Scotland's role, its challenges and opportunities on climate change in terms of a global context. Well, obviously it continues our role we've had for ever since the Climate Change Act Scotland. We have been world leading in our legislation and an exemplar in terms of how you can bring political and social will and the businesses all together with a really ambitious Climate Change Act. I suppose one of our biggest roles going forward is capacity building. So we do a lot of things really well around climate change in terms of across the sectors, really good amount of knowledge, good amount of activity, ambitious targets for reduction. One of the things we've done for hundreds of years in terms of Scotland is be good at exporting that expertise, working internationally. And certainly for my institution, University of Edinburgh, and academia across Scotland, we have a real role to play in doing that. So bringing students here, giving them the expertise on climate change which they can take home. But even more actually in recent years is actually training people in country, so using online delivery around climate change, mitigation and adaptation, so resilience, so they can be trained while they're working in country, so that we build that capacity, give that expertise from Scotland overseas and get it back too. So that's an area that we've been discussing a bit today as well, is how we build that capacity in country, so particularly for business leaders, executives, people in private and public sector who need that expertise to then take action, but also how that can be made international. So get that expertise we've got here and make that available around the world. And I think digital, I think the online, for me, because that's an area I work on a lot, it's really exciting because you can essentially, in the same room as you, by the power of the internet, have practitioners, experts from around the world, and really move things on, share good practice in a way that we could never do maybe 10, 15 years ago. My main hopes for today are for this not to be the end, because we often talk a lot, and it really is about then actions, substantive actions that we can take from this event. So for me, a key one would be, particularly in my sector, so agriculture, forest and land use, to have some follow-on feed-in into the climate change plan of the Scottish Government around the issues we're discussing, so actually help them in terms of reflecting the expertise we've got at this event for where we can go for emission reductions, real tangible changes that can be made. Better information as ever for us, so better data collection. That's a real role for us in the university and academia, is if you can't manage what you don't measure, so improvements around that, and that's where our discussions have been. The other big tangible one for me is that capacity building, it's the training. So looking at the mechanism where we can effectively train people who are busy people, so probably again using online short courses to get them together, bring them up to the state of the art in terms of climate change regulation, financing, science as well, policy, but also look at how that can be integrated into our internationalisation. So what Mike was calling the exportation of our expertise. I think that would be a great output, is to say a year down the line from this event, we've got a set of courses, a suite of courses which speak to capacity building in Scotland more widely on climate change.